Hey, welcome into another episode here of Men's Mental Health Podcast, episode 3, Mental Health in Sports, with Dr. Bhrett McCabe, the professional. We've got Nick Johnston, Johnston RV, our sponsor here. I am Lance Taylor. Look, you've got a lot of experience here. You are the sports psychologist for the University of Alabama. Mm-hmm. Why does it seem like when I hear, the first I ever heard about a therapist in sports, I think was John Smoltz. He had his guy, and this is back in the 90s.
red shirt behind home plate, yep.
They would always talk about it, and I was like, that's kind of strange. Like, I never really thought that John Smoltz, because he was John Smoltz, could be suffering from, like, anxiety and possibly depression. I thought it was just, hey, look, when you're starting to think this, do this, and maybe that's some of it. But I always thought kickers, pitchers, and golfers would be the guys that needed the best mental space.
Yeah, it's not uncommon. I was a pitcher in college, and pitchers, golfers, and kickers have the same mechanisms, the way we look at it, but it's all athletes. And I am very fortunate. Look, I'm an LSU Tiger. I've got 3 degrees from LSU. I've got 2 national titles from LSU. I work at the University of Alabama for a reason. When I got brought over there in 2010, 11, I was like, they were like, hey, look, you're not going to work football. We've already got it all established. Coach Saban has his guy that came from Michigan State, Dr. Rosen. He was the guy behind that led the process and all the other things. I was like, yeah, that's cool. Over time, I started working with some athletes individually on some stuff, and they would float me some football. And then eventually I kind of started working with them a lot more, and Dr. Rosen was a great colleague to work with over there. The reason why Alabama works and the reason why they're the gold standard in the NCAA is the model that they put forward. And I give a lot of credit to Coach Saban for that, is that he saw mental health was an issue that we all struggle with, we all face. And we needed to address it. We just didn't need to look at it and go, well, these kids are weak. No, we're asking them to do a lot. We put a lot of demands on them. Mental health among athletes, it was only until about the last 10 years ago, and I credit a former tennis player by the name of Marty Fish. Marty Fish was a top-ranked ATP tennis guy and started talking about having depression and panic attacks. And he wrote an article in the Players Tribune that started this whole genre of people writing in about their own suffering. Then DeMar DeRozan and Kevin Love and Ty Domi and Theo Fleury and all these guys just started writing. And then Naomi Osaka, number 1 tennis player in the world, steps down because of mental health. Lexi Thompson last week retires and says mental health is one of the reasons why I'm retiring.
Oh, back to Kevin Love. Like, I think Kevin Love, as good as his career was, would have been better. Like, he had crippling anxiety.
Yes. Yeah, look, Royce White.
Oh, you couldn't even get on a plane.
Couldn't get on a plane. And I talk about it in Kick Anxiety's Ass because, there were GMs that were like, I don't want to deal with that. Well, shame on those guys, right? But we're going to draft a person who has a history of abuse in their life, and we're going to go, well, they just have this other issue.
Yeah, domestic, hey, he beat his girlfriend a couple of times. We think he's got a little therapy for that. He's
panic.
Fine.
We got to give him a bus. Are you kidding me? John Madden would not fly. Right? He'd drive the country. So when you look at mental health among athletes, there's a couple things I always pull up. And I've gotten to know, and I'm going to get him on this. I'm going to get Michael on, Phelps. I've gotten to know Michael very well over the years. And it's funny, the other day he texted, I was sitting, it was funny. This is a little name brag, but I'm sitting in Fenway Park watching my team play the Red Sox. And my wife looks over and goes, so you're not going to tell me when Michael texts you? Like, it's just no big deal. And I'm like, well, it's just no big deal. I mean, I was just texting him. I was like, hey, we got to do something. He's like, whatever you need, let's do it. And he is so big on mental health because he talks about it. He was so driven for Olympic gold to be the greatest ever that it created a vacuum for when it wasn't there. And he didn't know what to do. Oh, yeah. And
what's crazy is really, he's training year round, but you've got the games, and then once the games are open,
5 years without ever taking a day off.
Yeah, but then you get really a 4-year lapse where you're not competing again for 4 years, at least at that level.
Yeah, at that level. And so when you look at these things, if you ask older athletes, even ask old veterans. My dad was a 20-year lieutenant colonel in the Air Force and a lot of combat time, and he didn't start having PTSD until after he got sick and it started surging. He did a really good job. He didn't drink it off or anything like that. He just put it in a box. Okay, the box got knocked down when he had a near death experience, and so we look at those things. But there was a couple years ago in college sports, and this is why I wanted to bring this up, that we lost 5 or 6 athletes to suicide. And there was a Today Show segment, we need to run it here, that they called and it was surreal for me is they said, hey, look, we're coming over to Tuscaloosa. We want to do a piece on Coach Saban and mental health, and Coach wants you to do a piece on it. And I was like, wow, okay, I'm going to be on the Today Show. And we're sitting out in Bryant-Denny Field, and we're talking about mental health. And we're talking to players like DJ Dale, who openly talked about coming to see me or whatever. And Coach Saban's ability to say, hey, look, this is what we make front and center. When I used to give presentations to the football team or the softball team or whatever and bring up, hey, you're probably going to experience some anxiety, depression, some homesickness, whatever, maybe one kid would come up and see me. Now, at least a third or half. And they may not have any issues, but they know about it. And so, when you think about what's happening in today's world, why it is. So we talked a little statistics. 47 million Americans suffer from mental illness on a daily basis. Think about that. That's astronomical numbers, okay? 1 in 25 will have a mental illness, 17% of youth, 16 to 17, pre-COVID. We know that COVID was really bad, but the generational difference is what happened. I'm 51. My mom worked outside the home when my dad was finishing up his career in the Air Force. That we were the first generation where moms worked outside the home, really significantly. We were latchkey kids. So what did we start seeing a lot of Saturday afternoon specials? Don't get in a white van. Be careful of the guy selling puppies on the side. But we moved to Plano, Texas when my dad retired in 1983. Did not know Plano, Texas was the suicide capital of the world for teenagers.
Wow.
Third day
There's got to be
school.
some kind of reason, right?
A lot of growth, wealth, and demands right away. And then it became the opioid capital. A lot of use of a teenage among opioids. But I remember Molly Ringwald doing a story about it, like a TV show. But what happens is you start looking as like, what were the major life events for people my age? 51. Challenger exploding. We all knew who that was. Fall of the Berlin Wall, MTV.
Still, 9/11. To a
that's
degree.
the next generation. See,
Okay.
I was on internship when 9/11 happened. I was 27, 28.
I was working at Jock, so I was in the workforce, but I was 27, 28.
But
I was
when
19.
19. So when you look about being 4, my daughter was under a year old when 9/11 happened. She's never been in an airport where you walked your friends and family to the gate and you sat with them and had dinner with them and then they got on the plane, right? They've always had a school resource officer at school. Always. Okay. They've always had the crawl of news at 24 hours a day, nonstop. So we're heightened. And people today want things easier, faster, quicker. That's just the way we are. We're more innovative than ever, but we're also more multifaceted than ever. So our athletes are too. So when we see athletes out there and we send them a DM or we're talking crap about them on a call-in radio show, it's like, really? You know what they're dealing with? Don't have a clue. And you're like, well, they're doing what they love.
They're making millions of dollars.
Man, they knew what it was like, what I had to do. Stress and pain is truly personal. Okay? That's all it is. And most everyone has multiple demands. If you are singular driven and you talked about in a previous episode, Tiger Woods. I don't know if I'd want Tiger Woods' relationship with his parents. It was while there was some love and adoration there, I'm sure.
I honestly wouldn't want his life.
Why would you?
Yeah. This is a guy that talked about swimming in open waters with great whites because I don't think he cared whether or not he died or not.
We talk about a local guy, Charles Barkley. How can he go to a restaurant and be normal?
Yeah.
He can't be. And he does a brilliant job of always being gracious. Okay? But there's a lot of people who don't want to be that role. He's just got the gift of gab. And there are a lot of introverts that are just perfectionists in what they do. They don't want to do that. Okay? So when we look at athletics and you look at the burden, it's very high. And great perfectionists can become great athletes. The problem is, do you turn off perfectionism once you get to a certain level? Not really. I was on the phone this morning with an elite athlete, a high-level professional athlete, and he's like, I'm trying to change my approach to things. I said, you can't change your fingerprint. It's who you are. You just got to learn not to burn yourself with it. And that's what happens. So that's why athletics is so high. So when we watch college sports, I know these kids are being paid. And I know it's better than when you played. It's better than when I played. It's better than when they went to college. Okay. But, we looked at Johnny Manziel and we were like, look at him blow all that away. Really? If I had to guess, there was something underlying Johnny Manziel that gave him genius on the field, but caused destruction in his life.
Where do you think it starts in sports? Does it start with the parents? Because I know some parents that were and still are, so hard on their kids, coaches that are really demanding, which you expect that, but a lot of people, put so much pressure on themselves and, maybe self-inflicted, but where do you think it really starts?
I think that, yes, to all of those. Number one is, so I call it the negative triad. Number one is we have unrealistic standards and demands in this country. All right, so a 15-year-old kid. I played 1 year of varsity baseball. I had to be held back to play junior varsity. And I played at LSU, best baseball program in the country, right? It's not Alabama football size-wise, but down in the Bayou,
but when you were playing for Skip Bertman,
it was huge.
Yeah.
Okay, it was huge. But I only played 1 year, okay? And so when we look at this, we go, well, that's a 16-year-old kid. I mean, he's going to be drafted in the first round. And it doesn't matter. But the standards are you should be doing all these things. I see parents, and they call me, and they're like, my kid doesn't enjoy golf like they should. I'm like, why would they? Why would they? You're making them go out there all the time. Is this your dream or their dream? But at the same time, parents who are like, you do whatever you want to do, maybe the kid won't realize what they want. I mean, my dad took me to work. My dad made me work for a civil engineer walking through Devil's Swamp in North Baton Rouge. By the way, it's the second most polluted swamp in the world. To make money, to learn, to go to work, to finish school, right? He grew up the son of a carpenter, had a 4th grade education. Pretty simple. I don't want to be putting shingles on roofs in 95-degree heat every day.
Were you walking the swamp like rescue missions? Like looking for...
No, we were looking for pipes.
Oh, okay.
We were looking for pipes. And I mean, it's lucky I have laugh. It's lucky we have kids, right? Because, I mean, it is... When you're in a swamp in Louisiana and you don't see wildlife, you know it's bad.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And so, anyway, you're out there. And so those unrealistic standards and expectations, well, freshmen never started in college football. Let's use college football. Now we see freshmen come in. It's like Bryce needs to start as a freshman. Hey, look, if it wasn't for COVID, there would probably have been a quarterback controversy with him and Mac Jones. But Mac had time. Nobody wants to be a 5-year plan, 4-year plan kid. And as parents, we want to give them every resource possible. We used to practice 2 times, 3 times a week when I was playing youth baseball. Now, how many tournaments can we play?
That was the point I was going to make. There's no breaks. If you play multiple sports, especially,
Yes.
there are no breaks.
None. Where do you think most kids in youth activities eat their dinner?
Probably at the
Concession
park.
stand.
In the concession stand or backseat of their car.
Yeah.
Okay, so while it's good to have all these resources, and I benefit privately and professionally on this niche business, but there's such a pressure for your kid to play in the state in Alabama and Auburn. There's such the pressure to get an internship at Goldman Sachs. Hey, you ever think about getting an internship at the local community bank? You may have a better mentor there. But the standards are so high. And the way we resolve it is we go to the ends earth, perfectionism, nonstop, more. I use this example. I went to an all-boys Catholic school in Baton Rouge, and it was a college prep school. It was hard. It was demanding. They didn't believe in anything over a 4.0. If you were an AP and you made a B, it was the same if you were in a remedial. You made a B. You had the same GPA. The reason was they wanted you to learn skills, not have a 4.9, okay? The highest GPA we had, or the highest ACT score we had in our class was a 33. And there were 3 of them. And we were like, holy crap, those people are smart. All 3 of them are physicians, okay? My daughter's high school is at Spain Park. I think there were 6 kids with a perfect score of an ACT. Like, first of all, the ACT parents, I'm just going to tell you, has 0 predictive ability of college success. It's a crap test.
It's a good way to get college paid for, is basically it, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. But I remember a friend of mine taking their daughter up to Vanderbilt. Not to knock Vandy. Thank God they're in the SEC for their, whatever they give. But he said, I remember walking around and I said, what's the average ACT score? And they're like 34.5. And he's like, you'll get no exposure to diversity here. I'm not talking about demographic diversity. I'm talking about intellectual diversity.
Right.
And so when we're pushing those limits all the time of better, there's never a break. Ever.
And there is a ceiling.
We can only squeeze so much out of it. So those standards are the problem. And as parents, your kids are going to make mistakes. The best failures create the greatest lessons. We got to give them a chance. We got to pull the bubble wrap off of them. And you also need to give them a chance to go play. Like I get the call all the time, a kid who's a sophomore, junior, is like they want to try out for their basketball team. Let them do it. Well, they're not going to get recruited by whatever sport. Yes, they will. Because what happens is college coaches say, I love multi-athletes, multi-sport athletes. The reality is most coaches want to recruit those kids by freshman and sophomore in high school anyways, and they really want the early specializers. So it's a mix. But the standards are so high. And for parents, I get it. You're playing to keep up with the Joneses. You're sacrificing everything you do. And I get it. It's a mix. But I remember a good friend of mine was a guy by the name of Kevin Mawai. He's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Tennessee Titans, LSU.
Yep, LSU guy. And I remember him saying, parents was like, my kid wants to play college football. And he's like, do they really? For the next 5 years, give up every summer vacation you have, every Thanksgiving and every Christmas. Because, I mean, think about it. Our kids coming into Tuscaloosa now or Auburn or whatever, the freshmen for this upcoming year, they're already on campus. If they didn't start in January, they started the day after Memorial Day. Like I know certain kids that finished graduation and 2 days later we're moving into the dorm. You got to go. There ain't no wait, okay? Because we got to get them ready. We got to get them ready. And now with the transfer portal, kids get exited. They exit out. If it's too hard, they don't see their future. They don't see their opportunity. So your question is what's the cause? The answer is yes. It's all of it.
Do you have an opinion or just general rule of thumb that you go by as far as when kids should start playing a certain sport, basketball, football, whatever?
I think they should really start specializing around 15, 16.
Okay.
If they're really good at both sports and they can handle it, I think it's wonderful to make it go as deep as possible. College coaches will always find them, right? And in today's transfer portal, you don't have to start out at the biggest schools. There ain't nothing wrong with getting better. And I tell my coaches at Troy, sorry, fans of Troy, Stanford, University of Louisiana Lafayette. By the way, it is not the University of Louisiana for anybody who's a Raging Cajun fan. Sorry, it's still USL. But all these other places, it's okay to be the coach that develops players that goes up to the LSUs, the Alabamas, the Auburns, the Georgias. Don't be bitter. Show them that you developed kids to advance. If somebody came in right now and grabbed Brownie and said, we want to have you on Good Morning America, you might be bitter and go, God, he's the least talented of all of us, but okay. All right, well, then we're going to find somebody else. We're going to make them even better, right? If you understand that, and that's what we have to do. So get in there and get them experience and exposure, winning, and coaches will find you.
He is Dr. Bhrett McCabe with Nick Johnston. I'm Lance Taylor. It is the Men's Mental Health Podcast, Episode 3, Mental Health in Sports. So you brought up Michael Phelps. It was difficult for me to vocalize what I was experiencing and to share. And it's been really difficult for a lot of guys that have reached out to me, telling me that I'm the first person they've talked to. When you're talking about an elite athlete, these guys, they've got egos. It's what makes them so good. How difficult is it for them to share?
Oh, it was shared on a national stage for Michael. He got busted for DUIs, right? And ended up having to go inpatient.
So was he coping?
He was self-medicating.
Yeah.
And avoiding. Avoidance is one of the toughest. See, stress hits us in two areas. Stress is all around us. Stress is any demand that's placed upon us. There's two types of people. There's reactors and there's responders. Reactors do everything they can to put their head in the sand and hope it avoids them. So it's like, just survive the day. Just don't get in trouble. Just don't get whatever. You know, if you're at work and one of your people come in and go, boss man, I screwed up. And their whole goal is like, just don't fire me. Just don't fire me. Just don't fire me. They don't learn the lesson. Responders go, I'm about to take it. I may get fired, but this will never happen again. They learn from it. Well, when we're self-medicating, we're very reactionary to stuff because we're just suppressing it. Michael tells a story, and I brought him in to speak to Alabama football a couple years ago, and his first thing he says on stage is, guys, there are days I want to be 6 feet under, still today. And if it wasn't for my wife to know those signs and triggers and what to do to get me out of the house and to get me around the right guys and support groups, that's what I need. And he said, I don't understand why those thoughts pop up, but they do, and they're strong. And he said, I've had to learn to not be an asshole to myself, to start saying it's okay to hurt. Today I woke up and I'm just not in a good spot.
So are we going to, and we shared in episode 1 kind of what we've gone through, and I guess we kind of continue to share a little bit, but are we going to continue to experience this for the rest of our lives?
I don't see a change.
Yeah.
And there are medications that can lower our arousal levels and can help us fix
But I'll tell you this, verbalizing has helped me so much.
Big time.
And so for people out there struggling, again, 988 is Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you start to have the conversations and you're more transparent, I think that's therapy in itself.
Well, there's always the statement of if somebody's worrying, Like we talk about it, it may induce it. It doesn't. It doesn't. Okay. If you walk up to somebody, like think about it. If I walk by you in the hallway and said, "How you doing?" You'd be like, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm good." We're conditioned to say, "Pretty shitty."
Yeah.
It's pretty shitty. That's what we're conditioned to do. Because if you said, "Holy crap, I'm having the best day of my life," you'd walk by and go, "I don't know what happy pills he's got, but something I don't know what he's seen." Right?
I don't believe him.
I don't believe him. Right? Versus like, man, I had a good day today. Like I'm excited. This is a cool thing. So we have to learn to open up and share and talk. And you're not going to have a conversation. You're not going to induce somebody. More times than not, you're going to you may pull the Band-Aid off a little bit and it may sting for a few. But if you have somebody who's trustworthy or you have a place to go, like I said, if you can't afford therapy, churches are brilliant options. I send people to churches all the time. And we got some major churches around the Birmingham area, and they're very skilled at helping people manage some of the crap that they got going on in their life. Don't be afraid of it.
It's people don't believe this. I see it in the chat room, but I have started to go to church regular basis. It has helped me tremendously.
Yes, we all need a spiritual. So to me, we need the three-legged bar stool: physical, emotional, and spiritual. Whatever your spirit is. If your spirit is, I go out and run and I get one with nature, dude, rock it on. Okay. If it's, I get up every morning, I read scripture, do it. If it's, I read books on quantum physics to understand the human experience of the universe, that's cool too. Okay. I don't judge. I want people to do what they find their feeling is. If your church, what I don't like to hear, and I'm going to piss off some people, is you can, because of the scripture that says, give it to God and anxiety will go away. You can't pray anxiety away. I'm sorry. You can ask for strength. That's my faith tells me. But you're going to have to do some work to make the anxiety become manageable. Sorry, I know we're going to get some calls on that one. But
No. Look, I mean, I
just hate to hear that because it makes people suffer.
Celebrating Men's Mental Health Awareness Month in May, our pastor did a series, and he wrote a book called Help My Mind's Under Attack. And there are things that, you have to do. It's just not going to, you're right. I mean, just prayer is not going to take care of it.
However, in the beginning of my book, and I got to pull it up because I can't remember.
And by the way, how can people get the book? I know you're not here to sell the book.
I'm not. But the reason I wrote it, the reason this is so relevant to me is because this is what I wrote. Like, I didn't write a how-to. I wrote a book, a memoir about me. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on Audible. It's called Kick Anxiety's Ass. You can buy it through my office. But I want to read this. Everyone knows the serenity prayer, right?
Yeah.
Okay. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That's where everyone stops. But did you know there's a second verse? Exactly. See, that's the AA model, which is wonderful. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. We live in a world that we can't change a lot of stuff. People cut us off in the road. No offense, not one of us sitting here listening to this can change the fact of who's running for public office. Okay, we can't. All right, we may think they're both idiots. We both love them both. Who knows? We can't. The second element of that prayer is the one that I live by, which is living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time.
That's the most difficult thing to do for me.
Oh, brutal. Because why? We have to live in the future.
You have to. I'll be on vacation in the pool, and all I'm thinking about is what are we going to do for dinner tonight?
Yes.
Or I'm going to have to pack the car in 2 days. What a pain in the ass.
Or think about your show. Y'all are talking about the football season that is 87 days away. Okay? 87 days away.
But do you have a good way to live more in the moment?
I'll come back to that. Let me read the rest of this.
Very important.
Okay, living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as the pathway to peace. See, that one line is a lot. See, we assume that life should be free and easy. Whatever faith you believe in, whether you follow Buddhist thought, which says that we all suffer, Christianity, I'm Catholic, I believe we all have suffering, and we find peace through the guidance of somebody in our life and following Jesus and God and the lessons that are there. I believe every lesson in our life, we're here today by divine intervention, in my opinion, to have a conversation. 4 men talking about what we're going through is hardship, okay? Taking as Jesus did this sinful world as it is, except the things I cannot change. Okay, I can't change that there's some bad things. I can do my best to influence it. Not as I would have it. See, that's selfishness. Trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will. That word surrender is the best word of this entire thing. I accept, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. So it's reasonably happy. Your kids don't have to be happy all the time to be successful. You don't have to be happy all the time. You don't have to be comfortable. We just have to be progressive, moving forward. Not progressive thought. I'm not talking religious. I'm talking progressive, moving forward. What is accepting in the moment? Just looking around and accepting what's happening. What does that mean? It's like, hey, I'm having a panic attack. I'm on the road. But yet I could still call my wife and I can still go forward. It isn't ending me. It's not killing me. I can still, it hurts. It's awful, but I can't.
If you are struggling, 988 is the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. 47 million Americans are struggling. They're suffering. Those numbers are probably
Underreported.
Yeah, underreported. There's a lot of you guys right now, whether you're, just a regular guy watching us, or if you're somebody's wife, and maybe you're starting to see some things. Start the conversation. Get in touch with a doctor. Very important. Men's Mental Health Podcast right here on Disrupt the Media. That is episode 3, Mental Health in Sports.